Welcome to In Perspective, our new series that takes an in-depth look at the prevailing challenges we're facing in our world today. I'm your host, Beth Goldsmith, Chair of the Board of the Associated, and I'm delighted that you're joining me today. Over the next months, we will be speaking with local and national experts about the global issues facing our world, from the environment to aging to anti-Semitism. During these intimate conversations, we will look at how the Associated and its network of agencies, thanks to the support of the annual campaign, is getting ahead of the curve to address them in innovative and forward-thinking ways. Today, we're fortunate to be sitting here with Jakir Manela, CEO of Hazon and Pearlstone. Jakir is one of the national leaders in the Jewish outdoor food, farming, and environmental, or JAFE movement, and we're so lucky that he's here in Baltimore. Recently returned from the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, Scotland, Jakir will offer us an insider's perspective on what the international community is talking about. Before we get started, I want to remind anyone to submit any questions you may have for Jakir through the Zoom chat. We'll have time to address a few questions toward the end of the program. Jakir, thanks so much for being here to talk with me today. And we all want to know, what was it like? Tell us about the Climate Change Conference in Scotland.
Well, thank you, Beth, for this invitation. It's so great to be with you today and to be a part of the amazing work that the Associated does. It's really a blessing to be a part of this. And it was really an honor to be in Glasgow at COP26, the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. COP stands for Conference of Parties. It's all the countries that have signed on and been a part of these climate change efforts over now 26 years. These gatherings have been happening. And for me, I'd never been to any United Nations event, never seen any gathering like this, like 40,000 people from all over the world coming together in this Scottish city. Never had been to Scotland before. It was beautiful to be there. People were really warm and welcoming. And it was really powerful. It was very intense. It's not one conference. Imagine like every country having their own booth and stage, running their own series of events, plus some of the largest environmental groups in the world running their own events. So it was more like 150 conferences happening at once with 40,000 people from all over the world, every culture, every language, many different faith communities. It was really profound, and it was really an honor to bring a Jewish voice there to represent the Baltimore community and the Jewish people in this really momentous time with this critical issue.
You just mentioned faith-based organizations. So how are faith-based organizations involved in the conference, and what is their role moving forward?
It's a really important question. And I didn't really know, honestly, the answer too well until I got there and was able to be a part of it. I was part of several different gatherings of faith leaders, and there actually were not any other Jewish leaders in the room. So again, it was important to be there and to represent the Jewish voice. There were many other faith communities represented. In fact, one meeting, there was overcrowded and I couldn't get in because it was just sold out. So there were many different people coming from a faith perspective. And you know, there were a lot of different conversations around different pieces of the policy work that's being done, how we can influence that, how we can encourage the national governments and the corporate leaders, all the major power brokers in this work, how we can really encourage them to go further faster in addressing this crisis. And I would also say that there's a little bit of an elephant in the room, not for the faith leaders, but in COP26, which is that, you know, we talk a lot about the technological fix to climate. Let's replace coal plants with solar panels. Or we talk about the policy fix, the politics of it, the economics of it, the finance of it. But at root, we see, and this was true for COP26 as well, there was some progress made, but by and large, the consensus is that we're not going nearly far enough and nearly fast enough to avoid potentially catastrophic climate consequences. And why is that? And in the faith leader circle, what we talk about is underpinning this technological transition, this political series of issues, the economics of it, there is a moral and spiritual crisis that we need to face. We need to face the impacts this could have on our lives, our children, our grandchildren, for the Jewish community to understand the impacts on Israel can be very real. And that demands of us a moral reckoning and a spiritual reckoning of how we face the changes we need to make. And I think COVID really shows us we as a society have the ability to make significant changes if we deem it necessary. That's the moment we're in. And with the climate crisis, and I think the faith leaders are calling upon the world, and that's our role moving forward, to really face the real depth and meaning of the changes we need to take and to step into that, to take responsibility. And I think the Jewish community has an important role to play in that process.
Thank you. You did say, of course, and I've read this as well, that maybe not enough happened and we're not doing enough and not fast enough for sure, but did the conference at least give you hope?
Absolutely. In some moments, reading some of the media that was quite negative, I almost felt bad being there and feeling so much hope, because to be in a place with 40,000 people coming from all around the world, really trying to address this and hearing about the pledges and meeting people from different faith communities and seeing how different faith communities are mobilizing and inspiring young people and people of all ages to act to green our communities, how could I not feel hopeful? And two moments that I really particularly want to share. We hosted, Pearlstone and Hazon hosted a beautiful Shabbat dinner the end of that first week at this stunningly gorgeous synagogue in Glasgow, 150 years old, really beautiful, the Garnet Hill Synagogue. And we, hosted everybody for a beautiful vegetarian Shabbat dinner. And it was it's a small community, but it was a much larger gathering than usual, including a very significant Israeli delegation. It was apparently the largest Israeli delegation that had ever come to a COP. They weren't in the faith leader groups, but they were out there. So we did prayer services, and then we had dinner together. It was so lovely, just the sense of Jewish peoplehood with Jews from all around the world. And then I welcomed everyone and just invited folks to share, like, what was the last week like? What are highlights? And some people got up and were actually pretty frustrated, voicing, we're not seeing enough. Yes, we are happy to see the pledges from the Israeli Prime Minister and other world leaders that we're going to be net zero, balancing out our emissions by 2050. That's impressive. That's like 7 prime ministers from now, or 7 presidents from now. What are you doing today to put us on that path? So there was that voice. But there are a lot of other voices that expressed a lot of hope. And just being in that kind of global Jewish community was really meaningful and hopeful to me. And then on Shabbat morning, that Saturday morning, went out. It was a beautiful week, sunny and gorgeous the whole week, except for Shabbat morning when it was like 40 degrees, windy and rainy. A perfect time for 100,000 people to go out and march in the streets. And that march, Beth, I've been a part of marches and civil protests before. I must have, I was very verklempt. I must have burst into tears a few times, because to march with people from all around the world, with every culture, signs in every language, faith communities, really expressing in a faith-based way, and singing and dancing and laughing and chanting and calling upon leaders was just so moving. And I really felt the dynamic between the elite, the decision makers inside the conference in the blue zone, the negotiators, the corporate leaders, sort of doing the best they can, not going far enough, but feeling the heat, so to speak, from the street, from the marchers who are really saying, however far you're going, it's not far enough, we need to go farther. And really seeing the interplay between those two parts of this movement, and both are really needed. We can't only have the marching. We have to have people doing it on a structural level. And those folks in those rooms really need to know that the youth, that the rising generations, that people all over the world demand that we take this seriously and we go in a robust way in the change we need to make. So I do feel hope, Beth.
And I always say this, you have a way of expressing yourself that really brings that vibe to the person you're talking to. So thank you. I'm feeling that. This is so interesting, and we could talk about it for longer, but I want to pivot and talk about the great work that is also happening locally. This past summer, Hazon, the largest faith-based environmental organization in the country, announced its plans to merge with Pearlstone. Pearlstone, which is funded by the Associated, would then serve as a national headquarters to the Jewish environmental movement. I recently had the privilege of going out to the Reisterstown campus one afternoon to see all the exciting things happening there. You know how much I love coming out here. It's always exciting for you to walk around campus and show me things. I have never been right here.
180 acres of the Associated mission and the Pearlstone mission. And now in this national and international leadership role, our mission with Hazon is to lead a transformative movement, deeply weaving sustainability into the fabric of Jewish life.
Being able to come here and to touch this and to see Jewish values actually in action is just an amazing piece. We're so thrilled that we get to partner with you. What else can you show me?
So much. Let's go. The solar panels here are really meant to be not only impacting our utility bill and our carbon footprint, but also a model and an inspiration for people to take this example and apply it in their own lives. And so we have two initiatives in the community now. If you are paying a utility bill, you can sign up through Pearlstone for a community solar campaign where you're investing in solar power and saving money on your utility bill through our partnership with Neighborhood Sun.
Tell me also how it works for the whole system.
The Associated is the first federation in the country to commit signing on with a solar developer to a 20-year contract to put up 10 acres of solar panels on rooftops in an industrial park in Baltimore City. And it will also move all the agencies of the Associated to be using 50% solar power as of 2022.
Now, Jakir, I recognize this because you've actually fed me strawberries from your strawberry fields. What else do we have here?
We're on the community farm, which came out of our master plan that the Pearlstone and the Associated did together. And it's really a tremendous part of what happens here. On our right here, the only certified organic U-Pick strawberries in the state of Maryland. Every Sunday, just cars coming down the driveway, young families, young adults, kids coming out, and you're picking it with young Jewish farmers, and they're teaching you the blessing, Brei Pri Hadama, and the feeling of gratitude and community. So there's one other thing I want to show you. It's so special. It's one of the coolest things we've ever done here.
And here we are at the stream.
Talk about turning a challenge into an opportunity. Our ecological master plan identified reforestation, it identified meadow restoration, and it identified water quality projects, because the Chesapeake Bay is our watershed, it's our home. Working with a great firm called Biohabitats, we identified stream restoration as a key priority, and they've redesigned the creek to be much more meandering, windy. It's much wider, the stream that was and it is than it used to be, and it's much more shallow. So that slows down the water, and it drastically reduces the sediment erosion that's feeding into the Chesapeake Bay.
Sign me up to continue to return to Pearlstone. You always have something fabulous going. I learned so much, and to hear you speak about it, your love of the place and your love of what you do, it's just contagious. Okay, Jakir, tell me now about this merger and tell me about Hazon.
Well, it's really exciting. It's a momentous time it's really an inflection point, a historic inflection point for the Jewish people, for America, and for the planet as we think about the climate crisis. And so, when this opportunity came up to explore a merger with Hazon, it was a really powerful crossroads for me, for Pearlstone, and for our community. Hazon's been around for 20 years. It started really with raising awareness in the Jewish community around environmental issues through bike rides. It started with a cross-country bike ride in the year 2000, summer of 2000, and did Jewish environmental bike rides in New York and California and in Israel. There's a wonderful Israel ride that still goes on to this day. It also has done a lot of work in food, in local, healthy, sustainable food as a core Jewish experience. Jews are about nothing if we don't care about food, right? So it's really tapped into that and integrated a sense of sustainability in a way that makes sense for us, because a lot of these issues feel so far away. What can we do about a coal power plant in China? Right? But we all eat 3 times a day at least. and how do we make choices that really reflect our values and our commitment to pass on a beautiful planet to our children, our grandchildren? So a lot of work around food as well. Today there's a Jewish retreat center in Connecticut called the Isabella Friedman Jewish Retreat Center, where I was trained as an environmental educator, a Jewish outdoor educator. I met my wife there. Wonderful place. And there's staff in New York and a major presence in Detroit as well. And a network of over 40,000 people that Hazon reaches all around the country through in-person immersive programs, thought leadership, leadership development, and really greening the Jewish community, working to mobilize and decarbonize the Jewish community moving forward. And so the opportunity to merge was just such a statement around how Pearlstone and the Associated have created the strongest Jaffe Jewish Environmental Education Center in the country. That, pre-COVID, the Pearlstone campus was impacting over 22,000 people every year through immersive retreats and Jewish outdoor education and hands-on farming and community sustainability initiatives that really has an impact, unlike anything else in the country. That's even before we start talking about the master plan moving forward. And it was so aligned with the Isabella Friedman Jewish Retreat Center, the work that's happening in Detroit. Baltimore and Detroit have some similarities. And our greening work, our community sustainability work, and Hazon's greening work are so aligned as well. And so now we really are the national umbrella organization for the Jewish environmental movement, impacting over 60,000 people across the country and around the world, actually, and really positioned to step into this moment, again, this inflection moment, and really lead a transformative movement, deeply weaving sustainability into the fabric of Jewish life. That's our mission, to create a healthier and more sustainable and more equitable world for all by leading that transformative movement.
Wow. And so you said we're talking about certainly our country and the world.
Yeah.
How will it impact us here in Baltimore?
Yeah. So Baltimore, I can't say enough about how grateful I am for what this community has done for me and for Pearlstone. I think it's certainly a story I have a lot of pride and nachas over, special feelings about. I also think it's one of the story around Pearlstone's growth and success and the associated support and partnership, really empowering and working with us at Pearlstone, is one of the great stories of innovation and legacy, and integrating legacy institutions with innovation for the Jewish future in the whole Jewish world. I really believe that. And I think this really positions us to be at the forefront of that work moving forward. Baltimore and Pearlstone are really the headquarters, the capital of this global movement. And what does that mean practically? Well, let's just think about it as like a two-way street, that there are some things that we'll be able to that are so important that are happening in Baltimore that communities everywhere will want to replicate. And there are some things that are happening nationally that we'll have now the opportunity to bring to Baltimore. So when we think about what could go national, two things that the Associated has shown tremendous leadership on and working with Pearlstone have already received a lot of interest and potential funding support to go national. One is the Green Loan Fund. The Green Loan Fund has now distributed through the Associated and Pearlstone working together with support from an anonymous foundation in New York, close to $730,000 to over 15 local Jewish organizations in Baltimore to change light bulbs and change HVAC infrastructure, to do the things we need to do to save money. We've saved over $1.5 million in utility bills to date, and lower our carbon footprint, save energy. It's really a no-brainer. It's like, this is perfect, right? And we're so proud of that impact that there should be, and I believe will be, green loan funds popping up all around the country. And Baltimore will be the original, and Hazon will be the facilitator that takes this work nationally. Another program that I think will be replicated nationally is that that the Associated and Pearlstone have worked together to now have a federation-wide solar farm. About 10 acres of solar panels going up on an industrial rooftop in Baltimore City just in the next few months, so that every agency of the Associated Federation network in Baltimore will be running off of 50% solar power just in the next few months in early 2022. And we will save $2 million over the next 20 years by doing that. Again, wow, that is so powerful, and I believe there is no other federation in the country that is doing that. But we're going to fix that. We want to take this to go national, and maybe someday the Associated will be the first federation to be 100% solar and renewable. And then when we think about what could we bring to Baltimore, like that's what we can give to the world, which is really important. What can we bring to Baltimore? So a couple examples, particularly in the realm of young adult engagement, so important to our community, something we've done really well with at Pearlstone, but the sky's the limit through this merger. The Adama program is based up at Isabella Friedman and has really trained the next generation of young Jewish leaders, rabbis of every denomination, Hillel directors, JCC leaders, people that go on to do amazing things, come through the Adama program and spend a few months working on the farm, doing yoga and Jewish meditation, building Jewish intentional community, really life-changing stuff. It's an experience that I and my wife went through as well. So we'll be able to bring a program like that to Baltimore, and we'll also be able to bring the Jewish Youth Climate Movement to Baltimore. That is a teen youth group that works with BBYO and all the other youth groups as well, to empower and educate and inspire young people in high school and in college who care about this issue and want to find community with their peers who care about this and want to speak to their schools, their institutions, and the Jewish community about how we can step up in this moment. Over the last 2 years, that program has gone from nothing, just being born, to now 35 chapters, hundreds of teenagers all across the country. We're going to bring that to Baltimore. So those are just a couple examples of all the great cross-pollination that's going to happen, and the impact is going to be great. Not to mention the financial resources that now, as the headquarters, we expect to really bring to Baltimore to support this work moving forward.
It's so impressive. I know how impressed I was the day I had the privilege of walking with you. So maybe this should have been the first question. Let's back up. What is, for all of our viewers, what is Jewish environmentalism, and what are the goals of the Jaffe movement?
So you might imagine, I get this question somewhat regularly. What do these things have to do with each other? So you can think about it two ways. One is, what does the Jewish perspective bring to the environmental movement? And then the other direction, what does sustainability and ecology bring to the Jewish experience? So when we think about what does the Jewish perspective bring to the environmental world, I want to share with you this quote that really captures it. Not only that answer, but also what was going on at COP26 in Glasgow. This is Gus Speth, former Dean of Forestry and Environmental Studies at Yale. And he says, "I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation." So the Jewish approach is bringing that deeper sense of where we need to go as a culture, as a society. And without that, the environmental movement doesn't have the tools it needs. And in fact, you see a lot of people in those fields kind of burning out. It's just demoralizing and kind of doomsday. But looking in the other direction, what does integrating and engaging with the natural world really do to the Jewish experience? If we look at the calendar and all the holidays that are really harvest festivals, right? If we look at right now, we're in the Shemitah year where we let the land rest and have this profound ecological and social reset experience. So much of our tradition is tied to the natural world. And I would argue that if we don't actually have experiences on farms and connected to the natural world, we're missing out on a huge part of the Jewish experience and a huge opportunity to engage the next generation, to which we know from our success at Pearlstone and Hazon really powerfully speaks to and inspires the next generation. So I want to share this. This is another text from Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav that I think speaks to how authentically this is part of the Jewish experience. He says, this is a prayer he wrote, "Grant me the ability to be alone. May it be my custom to go outdoors each day among the trees and grass, among all growing things, and there may I be alone and enter into prayer, to talk with the one to whom I belong. May I express there everything in my heart, and may all the foliage of the field, all grasses, trees, and plants awake at my coming to send the powers of their life into the words of my prayer, so that my prayer and speech are made whole through the life and spirit of all growing things." So I think there's just a lot that we can do to integrate these things.
Very, very beautiful, very beautiful. So you've mentioned a number of things in what you've just said, and even when you were talking about the teen groups. I'm sure everyone is really interested in knowing how we can use the whole concept of Jewish environmentalism to engage our next generation. And what are we seeing? What are our successes in this area?
Yeah. Really important question, and so much opportunity to speak to the goals of the Jaffe movement, trying to deeply weave sustainability into the fabric of Jewish life. It really happens through engaging that next generation. And there have now been third-party reports commissioned by national foundations where we see that the folks that are coming to Pearlstone, particularly young adults, about 75% of them, before they arrive at immersive Jaffe programs at Pearlstone, actually have felt disengaged or disconnected from the Jewish community. And then coming out of their experience at Pearlstone, again, these are third-party studies, 88% of them identify themselves as leaders in their Jewish community. And again, they're defining, how do they define, what's a new experience of what Jewish community can mean? So there's so many ways that we can make this happen in our work at Pearlstone through the Farm and Forest School program that grew by 1,000% over COVID to take kids out into the forest to make fires and trailblazing and wild edibles, all integrated with Jewish prayer and song and stories. The JFAM family camp programs, where we bring families together for a beautiful week on the farm, culminating with a beautiful Shabbat experience. Our partnership that's supported by the Associated with One Table, starting to do Shabbat dinners, farm-to-table Shabbat dinners with young adults throughout the community. And just coming up in the spring, we're going to be doing a Shabbaton for the Jews of color community here in Baltimore and throughout the region to connect with the land and connect with each other. We run a Tiyul adventure camp that's focused on farm and forest. We run so many immersive holiday celebrations, really integrating into all the different demographics with a really strong focus on youth and families, young adults and leaders and influencers. Really, the sky is the limit for all the things we can do to engage our community.
And now this is going to be a hard question, I know, just from everything you've just said, which is, what are you most excited about at Pearlstone?
You know, I have trouble getting excited, Beth, as you know. It's a challenge I have. We have such an amazing master plan for the Pearlstone campus for Living Judaism in partnership with the Associated, part of the Associated Centennial Campaign, an important part, and have already made major progress towards that and a long way to go. But when we fulfill that master plan, there will be nothing like Pearlstone anywhere in the country, I think anywhere in the world, as a Jewish immersion transformative campus experience. We'll be now, at that point, we'll be impacting between 40 and 50,000 people a year just at the Pearlstone campus. We already have the Rosenberg High Adventure Ropes course, the Ben and Zelda Cohen Farm Village in the works, a retreat edition under construction right now, and the Greenwald Amphitheater and Meyerberg Stage coming soon. These will be just transformative experiences for us. I mean, imagine all those immersive retreats, the summer camps, ropes course experiences. Imagine concerts and music festivals out there for Lag BaOmer, Yom HaAtzmaut, or Sukkot. There's just so much we can do. And we are now looking for, in partnership with the Associated, naming opportunities to name the U-Pick Organic Strawberry Fields, the U-Pick Organic Blueberry Fields, the U-Pick and Do-It-Yourself Winery and Vineyard. I know you're excited about that, where you can actually come out, harvest the grapes yourself, and go through a winemaking workshop series and walk away with a wine bottle, a case of wine that you made yourself with a label for your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or wedding or Shabbat table. Just really experiencing what it means to be hands-on, sustainable Jewish life. I just am so excited to get there together over the years to come.
And as I keep saying, your excitement is so contagious. It's wonderful. I just so enjoy sitting here talking to you. In the video, we showcase some of the environmental work happening at Pearlstone, and you've mentioned the Associated and the solar thing. Can you tell us a little more about what's going on and how the Associated is engaged in this?
Absolutely. So, you know, as we were talking about, the marchers in Glasgow, you know, are calling for people to say, not just say things, but do things. And in the Torah, we read, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. So it's good to make a pledge for 2050, and now what are we doing? And I think the Associated is absolutely walking the walk and really showing what it means to lead on these issues. That Green Loan Fund has made a real impact. The solar farm is on the way, and with the Associated and other major national Jewish organizations, we at Pearlstone and Hazon are building a climate leadership coalition that's going to engage national Jewish organizations and Jewish organizations all over the country and really all over the world to say, this is a Jewish issue, and we are all going to act. And I think through those coalitions and those roundtables will be a structure through which the Green Loan Fund and the solar farm gets replicated. And I think the Associated really has shown so much leadership, and we'll have the opportunity to do so much more. not only the Associated, other agencies throughout our network with the support of Pearlstone and the Associated. We're working with the JCC on this amazing new nature preschool partnership that we're sending educators to work with the awesome Owings Mills Early Childhood JCC Center. We work with the Baltimore Jewish Council every year to put on an environmental advocacy forum event just coming up in the next few weeks to really educate our community about the environmental issues that are on the docket in Annapolis every year. So really throughout the Federation system here and throughout our community, synagogues are absolutely showing major leadership on this issue as well. We're really stepping up as a community, and I'm really proud of it.
It's great. It's great news. So what about all of us out there? What can we as Baltimore Jews do to foster this movement?
Yeah, it's really important, and I do want to reiterate that I am proud of where we are. And I think I actually heard and saw a number of leaders, certainly the elected officials and corporate leaders who it's important to appear that we've made progress. But I also heard from a number of leaders, veteran environmental activists and NGO leaders in Glasgow, Scotland, that there are things to be proud of, that we have made progress. So I want us to all feel that. And I really want to ask us all to feel the immensity of the challenge and how much further we have to go. Think about what it would mean for every agency and every part of our Jewish community institutionally, and certainly all individually as well, to be running on 100% renewable energy. When are we going to get there? How fast can we get there? What does it mean for us to get there, to move in that direction? And again, it comes back to this, there's a technical side to this, but it also really comes back to and how do we move people in their heart and soul and mind and body? And we've seen at Pearlstone and Hazon that the immersive experiences are really what does that. So to foster this movement, I really want to say, I think it means investing in the experiences at Pearlstone to bring as many people out to really change as many hearts and minds as possible, to help us achieve the kind of facilities that we are looking for that will just be multiplying our impact in a huge way. And then with Hazon, they run a Seal of Sustainability program that greens Jewish institutions in a year-over-year, multi-year process. We really want to bring that to Baltimore and work with the Associated and agencies across our community and synagogues as well to green Jewish institutions so that we can all take steps forward. So I would say absolutely support the Associated, absolutely support Pearlstone and the Centennial campaign we have together. Look for the Hazon seal. And look for on the Hazon website the Brit Hazon, a covenant where each of us as individuals, as families, can figure out how do I want to make a difference? How do I want to change my own behavior on these issues? And it's a Shemitah year where we're really trying to step back and think about life in a deeper, broader way. And it's a really good time to do that.
Beautiful again. I'm going to wrap this up with you to ask you this. Fast forward 5 years. What's next?
Well, there's a lot going on right now. That's for sure. I really want to thank you and everyone at the Associated for your support during this transformative time. It really feels transformative. In Glasgow, one of the big frames for everything, frameworks, sort of paradigms, was this is the pivotal decade. This is really a time, there's one of the talking points that we heard a lot of is, we are the first generation to know how existential and threatening the climate crisis is, and the last generation to be able to really minimize as much as we can, minimize the impacts. It's kind of a lot of pressure. But it's also, we all think about our ancestors and the incredible things they lived through and resilience they showed. This is the crisis of our time. So in the next 5 years, and I know there are many other crises, all these things are related, and we are committed at Pearlstone and Hazon to working with the Associated on all these issues that impact our community. And this is one of them. And when we think about the young adults of the next generation, our next generation leaders, we must, for their well-being and for their relevance, for the Jewish community to be relevant and engaging to them, we must step into this. So I imagine 5 years from now that we have done that, and that we have young adults, so many lives changed at Pearlstone through all the music festivals and summer camps and weekend retreats, and immersive fellowships that we offer, that the facilities have been built out, and that we are now speaking at the Hazon, the associated headquarters that will be run by at least 50% renewable energy, closer maybe to 100% solar, and that's part of a transformative movement that really has hit a tipping point across the Jewish world. That we are going to see federations, JCCs, Hillels, and Jewish leaders and organizations and Jewish communities all around the country really moving past the tipping point on this issue, and that we will see that happening in faith communities and communities of all kinds everywhere. And this is it. This is the time. So what we do now will really start us on that path, and we'll do it together.
It is very powerful, as you said. It's a lot of pressure and a lot of power as well, challenge and opportunity.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really, Jakir, for being here. And thanks to all of you who are on the call today, because without your ongoing commitment and support, we couldn't be doing the things we've been doing to keep our community strong. Before you go, I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful Hanukkah. On this Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, the Associated Network, working alongside the Jewish Federations of North America, is shining a light on anti-Semitism to dispel darkness in all its forms. We encourage you to stand up against Jew hatred, mitigate ignorance, and act. Go to associated.org/shinealight to learn how you can be part of this movement. Then, join us next month on December 14th at noon for our next program, Aging Well in America, Preparing for Our Future. We'll welcome Dr. Leanne Clark-Shirley, Vice President of Programs and Thought Leadership at the American Society on Aging. She'll be talking about the trends. Then we'll sit down with three Associated Executive Directors, Lisa Budlow of CHI, Joan Grayson Cohen of Jewish Community Services, and Lauren Shavitz of HANA to talk about how Baltimore is thinking ahead to address these issues. And finally, I want to remind everyone about the importance of our annual campaign and how every donation helps. All gifts made from Giving Tuesday through the end of Hanukkah will be matched by a generous donor. To give, go to associated.org/give or call 410-369-9300. Thanks so much for joining us, and until next month, stay well.